All right, Saagar, what are you looking at?
Yesterday, March 20th, was an important day. It's one that will likely pass with little fanfare and acknowledgement by the mainstream media. But as we covered, and those who know, it's the 20th anniversary of the day that we invaded Iraq. March 20th, the day that American ground forces crossed into Iraq for the race to Baghdad. Little did those men know that we were doomed to waste $5 trillion, thousands of American lives, who knows how many hundreds of thousands of Iraqis, and pouring gasoline on a global jihadist movement that took almost 20 years to actually bring to bay. It is difficult to describe how bad the Iraq War was, what it did to this country. It actually ruined us to our core, at home and abroad. It set us back in ways that we still have yet to recover from. And to me, it's where the root of almost all our modern problems stem from. Yet, those who led us into the war in Iraq, those who supported it and beat the war drum for it, are still amongst us. George W. Bush is a celebrated painter now, pro-democracy because he stood up to Trump. The Cheney family is a paragon of virtue, apparently. Press secretaries of George Bush, who lied to the American people, who doomed young men to their deaths in a faraway land, are now MSNBC stars and never Trump heroes. Lawmakers and thinkers who justified the war in Iraq, they voted for it, they defended it, propagated it, remain amongst us to this day. Iraq is important not just because of how bad it was, but because those who pushed and justified this war today have been reborn as icons of the liberal establishment. They have moved from the center of power from right to left in this country throughout the ideological takeover, never taking their hands off the wheel of foreign policy. I was especially struck by this in the freakout over Ron DeSantis' comments on Ukraine and the people who crawled out of the woodwork to criticize him. Exactly 4 GOP lawmakers went on the record in this story. The first was Liz Cheney. Do I even need to tell you that not only did the Cheneys support the war at the time, but that she continues to support the invasion and the acts of her father? The next one was Lindsey Graham, another noted GOP clown who supported the war in Iraq at the time, never stopped supporting it, and recently advocated for World War III with Russia because our drone was forced down. The next was Marco Rubio, who of course famously defended Bush for invading Iraq in his 2016 campaign, and subsequently was trounced by Trump in the primary. Finally, the last was John Cornyn. Cornyn, conveniently for us, represented Texas in the U.S. Senate at the time. He voted for the war in Iraq. I'd actually said, in 2020, it was not a war of our choosing. Let's keep going. Among so-called prominent conservatives who criticized DeSantis, David French, now a New York Times columnist who lambasted DeSantis for his carefully worded answer to imply that it's not a core U.S. interest for Ukraine to defeat Russia, and calling it, at least in part, a, quote, territorial dispute. French laid out his take on DeSantis, which is, of course, fine, and a legitimate opinion, saying he's no Ronald Reagan. But I also happen to know he's still a vehement defender of the Iraq War. He wrote in 2019, quote, I believed the Iraq War was just and proper in 2003. I still believe that today. So by that metric, in the Frenchian worldview, if this is something that Reagan would have done, well, I think we should all be out on that one. Let's keep going, shall we? Let's move on. David Frum of The Atlantic. Frum, never Trump figure, also the guy who literally wrote the Axis of Evil speech that President Bush delivered, dooming us to the, quote, forever war on terror. A week ago, he writes, is DeSantis flaming out already? Advancing the idea that embracing a skeptical view of the U.S. view towards Ukraine is trying to win, quote, the Fox News primary. And not even a few days later comes out with a piece that, to this day, defends the Iraq War, admitting that while it might have been a mistake, we got at least something out of it, right? Yeah, I'm just going to go with wrong. I'll keep going. Let's go. Bill Kristol served as the mouthpiece of the Bush administration, ran a magazine whose entire job it was to push for the Iraq War, also hit DeSantis for not supporting Ukraine's freedom. Reminded me of a tweet that I'll never forget of his from November 2016. The Iraq War was right, necessary, and we won it. Let's go. I can continue even more. I'm sure you get the point. Nicole Wallace, the former Bush comms official who shilled for the war, aired multiple segments on her show denouncing DeSantis. All of this is just compiled to show you the loudest voices out there today beating the drum for more aid to Ukraine and attacking DeSantis for half-hearted endorsement of a Trumpist-style worldview shows you how these people have suffered no real consequence. Worse, it shows that a group of people who hold tremendous power over our foreign policy and remain influential are also completely out of step with most Americans. Today, the vast majority of Americans say the Iraq War was a terrible mistake. 61% say they do not believe that the U.S. made the right decision. If you remove boomers from that equation, it is overwhelming, almost all young voters saying it was a catastrophic mistake. With respect to Ukraine, this also shows out of step even these lawmakers are from their own voters. Only 42% of GOP voters even support aid to Ukraine, with most turning against it. This is the same trend amongst independents. One of the most enduring lessons of Iraq is that monoculture views on foreign policy lead to inevitable disasters, that intervention has 40th order consequences, often which are far worse than people ever could predict, and that you can deal with the fallout for years to come if you get it wrong. We escaped Iraq merely penniless, torn apart as a country, and with 1 million or so people dead. Let's hope that the butcher's bill is not as high, if not higher, for our current posture abroad. And isn't it amazing when you look at those side-by-side pieces?
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.